welcome to my March reading wrap up. I know I missed February. I just kept putting it off and putting it off and putting it off. But here we are, it's the end of March, and I had a really, really good reading month. I think I read 11 books in total, maybe 12. We'll see at the end. I'll just start with the very first book of the month, like I always do. So the first book that I actually listened to this month, it was an audiobook, was 99% Mine by Sally Thorne. I gave this book 3 to 5. It's a romance. It was cute. It was entertaining. It wasn't anything spectacular. It's, nothing I'm recommending my friends to read. But it was nice for what it was. It reminded me of The Quotient Kiss that I read earlier this year, or I read last year in the summertime. Just kind of like a light, easy romance read. That's a bit more adult than, I guess, what I'm used to in the YAs. So, yeah. The second book I read this month, which I didn't really care for, was Delicious Foods by James Hannaham. I gave it a 2 out of 5 stars. This book is really weird. I know I shouldn't say weird, it's very different. It's about this boy and his mother. His mother's a drug addict, and she winds up on this farm, and her boy goes to find her, and he ends up staying on this farm. And it's about poverty and addiction and the Black community. It sounds good in the synopsis, but I didn't really care for the book in general. But it was fine. I mean, if it sounds interesting to you, I think you should pick it up. But, meh. Nothing to write home about. The third book of the month was Then She Was Gone by Lisa Jewell, which I loved. I gave it 4 to 5 stars. I read it so fast, I couldn't put it down. And this isn't even like a thriller book or a mystery. I mean, it's kind of a suspense novel. I guess maybe like it could be a horror. Like, it's terrible what this woman does to the girl, but it's about so we have our main character. Her daughter goes missing, and 10 years later, she meets a man. She meets this man's daughter, and it's the spitting image of her daughter. But her daughter disappeared when the daughter was about 16. And this new man, his daughter is only 10 years old. So it's not her daughter, but it's the spitting image of her. And we just learn about how all these people are tied in together. And like I said, there's no big reveal. She's kind of telling us what's happening the whole time, but it's just so good. Even though what's happening, you're still on the edge of your seat, I think. I loved it. The next book I read was Girls of Paper and Fire. I actually listened to this as an audiobook by Natasha Ngan, Ngan. Sorry if I didn't pronounce the last name right. I gave this book a 3 to 5 stars. The reason I picked this up is because Kayla from Books and Lala spoke so highly of it. And I think I saw on a few other places, people really liked this book. So I was like, okay, it sounds great. It's about it's set in China. It's a fantasy set in China. The emperor gets all these paper girls, and the paper is the lowest caste. So every year he gets 8 new paper girls as his concubines, and as you can imagine, it's about an uprising that's happening in the palace, and our main character becomes a part of that. It was fine. It was good. It's a YA fantasy, 3 to 5. The other book I read, this was for my book club, was called Broken Hearts, Fences, and Other Things to Mend by Katie Finn. And I gave it a 3 to 5, but even though I gave it a 3 to 5, I actually really, really liked it. It's just, for what the book is, for the character, I didn't really like the main character, the plot, and the relationship with the parents. There's so many things I didn't like it, but I actually got quite invested in the story, and I read it very fast because I enjoyed reading it. I enjoyed the story, But again, it was just, I liked it. It's a 3 out of 5. It's nothing like, oh my God, it's so, so good. But it was a fun book to read. And that's what I liked about it. And I'm actually reading the sequel. I never continue in a series. And I'm actually continuing with this one because I kind of got invested in the story and I need to know what happens. And like I said, like even now with the second one, like the characters are still whatever, and the book is a lot of fluff, but it's just fun and easy. I believe the sixth book. So this is when the Buzzwordathon started. The first book I read was When We Collided by Emery Lord, which I gave 4 to 5 stars. It was fantastic. The main theme of this book is mental health, and of course it's a romance. It's a YA, and I think it was just so great. I loved both the main characters. I loved watching the romance blossom. I loved the family dynamics. I loved the highlight of mental health and the rawness that Emery Lord brought to the book. Like, I just thought it was very, what's the word? Like, she did a really good job of, I think, showing mental illness for what it is, if that makes sense. Like, she just did a good job at not making it seem unbelievable. It was believable. The next book was What Alice Forgot, which I also gave 4 to 5. I had a really good Buzzwordathon. I gave that 4 to 5. What Alice Forgot is by Leanne Moriarty. It's about a woman. She's 29 years old. She's like 5 months pregnant. Her and her husband are doing their thing. She wakes up in the hospital and she's actually 40 with 3 kids, and her and her husband are getting a divorce. So it's like, what happened? And you're learning the whole time bits and pieces of what's been going on in the last decade. Is she going to get her memory back or not? And she's just so confused. And it's just so cute how her friends and family are portraying her as her 40-year-old self, but she's still acting like her 29, 30-year-old self. And she's so like young and free-spirited and a little naive. And I really liked that. It was really fun to read. The next book was Where the Heart Is by Billy Letts. So this is actually quite an old publication. It was part of Oprah's book club, and I gave this book a 5 out of 5 stars. I loved the story. I loved everything about it. And it's one of those books where nothing happens. It's just a really, really good story. So we follow our main character who is pregnant. Her boyfriend basically abandons her in this Walmart, and this town just accepts her and loves her and takes care of her. That's it. Takes care of her, and just, it's about her and her daughter growing and becoming a part of this community, and it's beautiful. I absolutely loved it. I didn't want it to end. I still want to read more about this person's life. Then the last book of the Buzzwordathon was Why Be Happy When You Could Be Normal by Jeanette Winterson. I had really low expectations for this book. The only reason I picked it up was because I was searching on Goodreads books that start with Y, and I could get this audiobook, so I was like, okay, let's do it. It's a nonfiction, and I ended up giving it a 4 to 5. I still think about it. Like, I still think about the philosophical comments she made, the philosophical questions she asked in the book. Just about her childhood. It was quite traumatic, how that affected her. It makes you think about relationships, and you saw how she was in relationships, and it makes you think about how you are in relationships and what relationships should be. And I actually want to buy this book to have in my library, and I want to reread it, and I want to do like a full-on book reflection of it. Like, I just really, really enjoyed it. The next book was The Dreamers by Karen Thompson Walker. I gave this book a 4 to 5. It's a YA. I think it's a contemporary, but I guess someone could say it's a kind of sci-fi fantasy, because it's about this college town, and this virus spreads and it puts people to sleep. And it's just talking about what happens to a town or a city when there's an outbreak. It followed a bunch of different characters, and we saw each of their role and how they reacted to the outbreak and what risks they took and what they did to protect the ones they loved. And it was a really good story. The next book was Girl Made of Stars by Ashley Herring Blake, which I gave 4 to 5. All I need to say about this book is it's about a girl whose twin brother, who she loves, is accused of raping his girlfriend. If that doesn't make you want to read this book, then I don't know what will. Like, I've never read a book coming from that point of view, and I think just that is so captivating in and of itself. And to see how this story unfolds, and then the main character, she has her past sexual trauma, and it's just so good. It's so well written. It's feminist, it's empowering, and it's a really great read, especially for YA. It's really, really good. The second last book of the month was Eleanor Olaf is Completely Fine. I did this as an audiobook. I gave this book 5 out of 5 stars. I loved it. It's kind of like Where the Heart Is, in the sense that nothing really happens, but I just loved her story. I mean, more happens in this book. Like, there's more, it's more dark, I would say. I think it's just so good. So good. It's about, we have Eleanor Oliphant. She is like an isolated, late 20s. She has her job, she has her routine, she has no friends, and then she meets a guy from work and he basically becomes her friend, and he puts her on this journey to discovering who she is and starting like a real life. It's so fantastic. The final book of the month was, I read one more book in March. The final book of the month was The Start of Me and You, which I also gave 5 stars. March was a really good reading month for me, but The Start of Me and You is a YA romance, and it was so good. Like, I haven't read a YA romance I loved this much since To All the Boys I've Loved Before. So, and like this, for me, The Start of Me and You is on par with To All the Boys I Loved Before. Like, I love them both equally. I can't wait for the sequel to come out. It doesn't come out till 2020, but it's basically about this girl who 1 year ago, her boyfriend died, and she is starting the year off with a plan to kind of overcome her grief, push her out of her comfort zone, and make her feel like herself again. And so she has 5 different tasks on this list, and it's about her completing that list. But along the way, she just develops such amazing friendship. Well, she already has really good friendships, but it's about like, it highlights how the friendships become stronger. And of course there's a romance in it. And it even talks about, she was really, like, she had distanced herself from her family, but now she's getting closer with her family, and I don't know. It's just so good. I just loved it. So that was it. That's my March wrap up. I think, let me just count real quick. I did 13? Did I do 13? That doesn't seem right. Yeah, 13. I did 13 books in March. That was a really good reading month. Hopefully April goes just as well. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.